welcome to Nick Needs to Know. Get ready for some raw and honest discussions as I bring on guests from all walks of life to spill the beans on their career journeys, the hurdles they faced, and the invaluable lessons they learned along the way. So let's dive into the nitty-gritty and uncover the good, the bad, and the ugly of chasing our dreams and finding our way in this crazy world. In today's episode, I have the pleasure of being joined by Katherine Downey, a certified life coach. We delve into a range of topics, including her early career experiences, her personal challenges, and the delicate balance of juggling work life with parenthood, among many other engaging discussions. So let's dive straight into the conversation with Katherine Downey. Afternoon, Kerry. Katherine, start again. I've been saying your name in my head for the last 10 minutes and I get it wrong. I'm going Katherine. Right.
When you said that then I thought, oh, hang on a minute. Am I on the wrong podcast?
Wrong one. I ain't even got a Kerry booked in for a podcast. I don't even know where that came from.
Oh, well. Good start.
That will start again. Afternoon, Katherine. Thank you for joining me on Nick Needs to Know.
Afternoon. Thanks for having me.
No problem. We're going to talk about your career and life. So first of all, I wonder if you could take me back to your first ever job. What is it you remember doing?
My very, very first job was when I was 16 and I had so many jobs. Literally, my first one, I worked in New Look at the weekend. My mum was very much like, you have to go and get a job. You know, you have to go and get one. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. And when my mum started to charge me rent, she was like, I'm going to charge you rent now when I've left school. And I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And I got a job at New Look and I absolutely loved it. I loved working there. It was in the town centre. Like I got to know everybody there. And then I also when Christmas was approaching, I also got a job at Argos. Upstairs, as I wasn't allowed on the shop floor. I was only allowed upstairs.
Was this like a temporary Christmas job?
A temporary one, yeah. But they let me go just before the Christmas contract finished because I wasn't very good.
Well, live and learn.
But I still have a job at New Look, and I absolutely loved that. And I tried to. I remember my mum was obviously trying to charge me rent, and I tried to not pay her rent, but because I got 50% discount, say I would buy her some clothes instead of me giving her rent because it worked out cheaper, but she wasn't having that. Didn't work out.
Yeah. You can't pay your mortgage in clothing, can you?
No, it was a hard lesson.
Yeah. So moving on from New Look then, how long were you there for?
So I was there probably just over a year. I actually when I was in college, I went to college as well. Didn't really know what I wanted to do at that age. And I think that's the thing nowadays. You're so young. You know, I've got a 16-year-old and a 14-year-old as well as the baby. And, you know, and they don't know what they want to do. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I went to college. I was going to be an air hostess. That was my next thing. I was like, I'm going to be an air hostess. Started doing the course. And I just decided that wasn't for me. So I left college. I didn't finish it, left it. And my mum by this stage was probably pulling her hair out, really, like, what is this? What is my daughter doing? She's still working in New Look on a Saturday and Sunday. She's just dropped out of college. She couldn't hold a temporary Christmas job down at Argos. I then got a job in a restaurant. And I got sacked from that job because I couldn't carry the trays over without spilling the coffees.
Yeah.
And so again, I was still very young, do you know what I mean? And I look back now and I think, my gosh, you could probably do them jobs quite easily now, but back then it was a big thing. And when I was 18, my mum then moved in with her, who's now her husband. And at this point, I was like, okay, I need to get a proper job. Like, what am I going to do? And I got a job at the council. It was a fantastic job. It was at the local council, quite close to where I'd lived then. Um, and it was, and it was a steady, it was an income each month, the same income every month. I was on a salary, and there was places where I could go, where I could move up if I wanted to.
Yeah.
If you could go up on different scales into different departments. And to me at that time, like I was 18 years old, 18 years old, it was just money to pay the rent where I was staying in a shared house, which was with other people, and just to have fun. Do you know what I mean? I didn't have any
Mm.
big ties. I didn't have any commitments. As long as my rent was paid and I had money for the weekends, I was
Yeah.
quite happy. So I never took my career serious when I was younger, when I probably should have a bit more, but I just didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't ever feel like I was in the right place.
Do you feel like some of the pivotal moments you've had like forced onto you rather than you figuring it out for yourself? Like all of a sudden you're paying rent because somebody else is telling you you've got to pay rent, not because you've decided. Do you
Yeah.
feel like that maybe have slowed you down or put you on back foot a bit in your career sort of thing?
Yeah, I think it probably did in a way, really. And that's no fault for anyone's, that's just the way,
Yeah.
obviously, my mum's upbringing was. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so it's like a knock on ripple effect, isn't it, really? That's what you do. And yeah, it probably has really, because I didn't know what I wanted to do. Do you know what I mean? Like, I remember, I think I did at one point, I think I started doing a nail technician course. I was going to be like, okay, I'm going to be a nail technician. I've never qualified in that. I
Yeah.
bought all the kit, but I didn't. And where I used to live, the college was like over the road. And I remember going there. I only briefly remember it really. It's quite a vivid memory of going there in the evening, thinking, okay, I'm going to do this now. I just I never felt like I fitted in
Yeah.
anywhere, anywhere I went to. And I think part of that is because we'll probably go back to my childhood really. It's fitting in. I didn't really ever feel like I was in the right place,
Yeah.
and that happened then in college. I would speak to people in college and they were like, oh yes, I'm gonna, when they were doing their hair, so I'm gonna go and work for British Airways and all this. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like literally let's just go and have some fun. Like I don't know what I'm doing. I didn't know what I wanted
Yeah.
to do, but I remember my mum saying to me, you've got to do something. There's got to, and to her, my mum, like, the college, going to work for the council was a massive thing. It's like, Catherine, this is a job at the council that's so secure. This is, you'll get a pension, you'll get this, you'll get that. At the age of 18, I'm not thinking about a pension.
Yeah. No.
I'm just thinking
No.
about how am I going to pay for my night out at the weekends?
Yeah.
I've got no other commitments. I've literally just got living my life. And to hear all that, it was like, back then I was like, oh, she's just nagging me. It's just nag, 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 nag. So yeah, so I think really a lot of my choices when I was younger, and they're probably then impacted to where I am now, are because of being told I've got to do things by other people.
Yeah. I mean, I was very similar. I moved out when I was 18, around that sort of time, and all of a sudden you've got to do something rather than that wanting to do something just gets put to back of the queue because the need to do something is more prevalent. Because you've got bills to pay, all of a sudden you've got a roof to keep over your head. You were at the council. Was that a steady job for a few years then, or did you?
Yeah, it was. And you know what? I enjoyed it, and I've met friends there, and I'm still friends with them today. Like, one of them is I've actually she's messaged me this morning. And that was, how well many years ago was that now? Like 20 odd years ago, and I met some really good people, and it gave me a really good insight, to what work was as well, and at the
Mm.
time, I remember going. I went to an interview. I was going to move to a different department, and I went for this interview. And when I got to the interview, I walked in there, and the woman who was sat behind the desk, where I first seen, was my uncle's ex-wife. And I walked in and they were only just going through the separation, the divorce at this point. And I had the interview and I had to do a typing test and everything. I don't even know if they do them anymore in offices, how many words you can type in so many minutes, things like that. And I
Yeah.
did the interview, and to me, I come out and I thought that was a really good interview. I was absolutely made up with it. And then I never got the job. And I thought, wow, why didn't I get the job? And all they said was, you're not suitable. And I thought, well, in my head, I was like, well, I've got everything you need. I did the typing test and all this. And then I overheard my mum and my nan having a conversation saying, you know what, she never got the job. It was because of
Yeah.
it was my mum's brother's ex-wife. She was there, so she was on the panel, like this and all this. And I was just in my head, I was so angry. And it kind of made me realise at that point, I thought, do you know what, this job's not secure, because if I had to work within the same council, okay, not in the same department, but we're still under the same council, with somebody, and I can't get the job because of something that's happened within my family. How can I move forward with this?
Yeah.
Where do I go with this? And I did go to another department and ended up moving somewhere else, and and that was fine. And I enjoyed that job. I enjoyed the people I worked with, and then that was then when, at this point now, I'd met my ex-husband, and then I was then pregnant with my eldest son, who's nearly 16 now, when I was working there. So up until that point, the job at the council had been just to fund my rent and my goings out. And then all of a sudden it was like, okay, now this has got to fund the baby.
Yeah.
It was like,
Another
right,
life.
what is it this? And again, I was still only very young, so I was 21 when I had my son. So I was still young, really. And it was like, I've got to get my shit together now. Is this
Mm.
the point now where I've got to get my shit together? But I was having a baby, so I was like, how do I get my shit together when I'm having a baby? How do I pursue a career now when I'm going to have this baby? And I remember saying, to my partner at the time, we then got married not a few years later, but I remember saying to him, you know, what do I do after I've had this baby? Do I just carry on working at the council? Do the child go to childcare? I'd moved away from my family, so I didn't have that support network. And I was like,
Mm.
and at that point then I was like, I want to move back to where my family are, to
Yeah.
hopefully get that support.
And did that cause you to then leave the council?
Yeah, so I stayed there. I did stay there. I worked all the way through my pregnancy. I went back to work when my son was 9 months old. And then when I was pregnant, then we decided that we were going to have another baby. And it was after I had Jessica, that's when I said, I'm not going back to the council.
Yeah.
I then all of a sudden, I think I hated the fact that I'd had to leave my son in nursery, because I changed as a person, because I think you do when you become a parent, everything changes.
Mm.
I hated leaving him and I didn't know. And I thought, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I knew at that point that going to the council to keep on working there, I had to travel. It was about, I had to get a bus there, to drop the children off. And then we got there, then I could have the car. Then I had a car, got myself a car, and it was still have to drop the children off and did one place and then running around here, there. And I then thought, I worked so far away. The travel was too much. The hours were too long. I wasn't getting back in time. I was having to rely on family to try and help me out a little bit,
Mm.
which wasn't always great. I'm not going to lie. I think, they, like family, they will help out, but only to a certain extent,
Yeah.
so when it's every day, and you're saying, I need help, I need help. It was, in the end, it was like, this is too hard.
What was your partner at the time? Was he working full time as well?
Yeah, he worked away as
Yeah,
well. So it was just me at home, with two children. So that's when then I decided, you know what, I'm gonna just be a mum
yeah,
for a bit and see where that takes me. And that's when then I did kind of find my path a little bit more
yeah.
then. I suffered quite bad depression after I
Okay.
had Jessica. We Me and my partner, we separated. Me and the children had to move in with my mum, which again wasn't great, but we had nowhere to go. Then and until I could move into the house that I was then moving into.
Yeah,
And I did suffer quite bad depression. And then once Jessica got to preschool age, so she would get like so many hours free childcare a week. She was 3 years old. Joshua was then in full-time school. I then thought, you know what? I think this is when I started to find the real me of who I was. I then thought, I don't ever want anyone to feel how I have felt with depression, with um, struggling to actually get through every single day when they've had a baby. So I started volunteering for a charity called Catch 22, who actually supported me at first when I remember going to a baby group with both the children. And I don't even recognize this person now, but I remember going, and I got outside and I was like, I just froze. I can't go in. I can't walk in there.
mm,
And I had to ring this lady up who'd been helping me. She wasn't a health visitor. She was more just like a support really. And I rang her up. I said, I can't go in. And she'd, of course, said, no, I can't do it. So she'd, right, I'll tell you what, she'd go home now because I can't come now. Go home. And next week I'll meet you outside. And I said, okay. So she did. She met me outside. And I remember going in with her. And all the other mums were sat down talking. No one really noticed that I'd walked in with somebody. And the woman who walked in, she had a badge around her neck, so you could clearly see she was a professional that I was walking in with. And I didn't think anything of it at the time. And I just sat down. And the kids, they obviously two toddlers, they just ran off to
yeah,
play. And I found an area to sit down. I didn't sit with any mums. I sat completely on my own. And I didn't I didn't feel like I belonged there. So once I'd, once I'd come through that depression, once I'd come through that, the children then, when Jessica started preschool, I thought, you know what, I want to do something, I want to give something back. So I contacted Catch 22, who had supported me, and said, is there any way I can come and volunteer with you while I do my childcare qualification? And they said, yeah, I could, you know. So because I wasn't great in school, when I went to the college to say, I want to do my childcare qualification, bear in mind at this point, I think I must have been about 25, right?
yeah.
So 25, 26. I went to the college and they said, okay, what GCSEs have you got? So I went, so I showed them what I had. And they went, you're going to have to do your maths and English again. And I thought, you're joking me. I thought, I've got to do a maths and English all over again. So I enrolled on a nighttime course for maths and English. Went and did that, and I am not gonna lie, I English I'm fine with. I passed one part of my English exam,
Yeah.
but I hadn't passed the other part. So I think I can't remember what part it was I passed and what part I didn't because it's been so long now and I've never looked at them again. But when I went into the college, I remember I went and it was all adults, and I sat down and I thought, right, and the English one was fine. I did it, no problem. The maths, I had to have extra tuition, right? I had to go in extra nights. I had to have, the tutor boy on the phone to me going, have you done the work? And I was like, I can't do it. I just can't get my head around maths. It's just something I've always struggled with. But I did it. I passed it. I remember the night time of the test, and I went and did it, passed it. And then I went on then to do my childcare qualification. And then that's when my career really started, but it's gone in so many different directions to get me to where I am now.
It seems like you're very tenacious, like with the story you just told me there. If there's something that needed doing, regardless, you've gone out and done it anyway, haven't you? You've like
Yeah.
just talked about your maths and English there, and a
Yeah.
lot of people would probably just give in and fail.
Yeah. And I think I was talking today actually about that, about, giving in and not giving in, because that's the case. Um, and I'm not a quitter. Do you know what I mean? And if
Mm.
something needs to be done, then I do just go ahead and do it. I don't ever ask anyone's opinion on anything. I go and do it. Like with my career where I am now, like my partner who I'm with now, when I told him I was going to go back to work in like my own business again, I, he was quite shocked that I was going to go down this road again. And then the next day I was like, right, I've got a business name. I've enrolled on a course. I've done this, I've done that, I've done this. And I'm very much like, let's get this done. Don't sit on it. Just do what you need to do.
Would you say you'd attribute those traits to earlier on in life? I mean, even just from listening to your story from the beginning, I think we touched on it about being forced into doing things when you're not ready, and you just had to do them anyway. Do you think you'd attribute your traits that you've got today to maybe your earlier life?
Yeah, I think so. Because I have had to, like, from an early age, I have had to fend for myself.
Yeah,
I've had to, if things needed doing, I've had to go and do it. And my mum saying to me from a young age, no, you've got to go to work. I remember my drive when I was applying for my provisional license. And the first thing I had to get a form, to fill out for your provisional.
mm,
And my mum said, right, you need to ring them up. And I went, okay, so can you ring them up for me? She said, no. She said, you're applying for a driving license, Catherine. You have to ring them yourself. And I was
yeah,
like, oh my word, I've never rang anyone like this before in my life. And she said, just tell them what it is you want. So I did, I rang them up. And then I remember they've got the form to fill it out. And I said to them, are you going to fill it out for me? And again, she was like, absolutely not. No, this is yours. You need to fill it in. So I think it's a real positive. Now, at the time, I didn't think that was positive. I was like, well, she's making me do everything, and
yeah,
even down to like getting out of bed in the morning, you get out of bed straight away. It's Catherine, make your bed, straight away, come downstairs. You're not sitting downstairs lounging around at the weekends. You get ready. If you've got time to lounge around, then you've got time to go and get a job,
yeah.
and that's kind of like what it was, you know what I mean? I had to, and I watched my mum. She's a very strong lady, my mum, and she brought me up, like, especially in the later years when with my dad, like he left, and for a long time it was just me and my mum. And I watched her have to fight for things herself, and then I also had my nan, and my nan's a very strong lady, so I had two very strong people either side of me all the time saying, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. But my nan was a lot softer. Like, she would do things for me, but say, don't tell your mum I've done this.
Yeah.
A lot
Tell you've
softer
got to
way.
do things, but then give you a bag of sweets as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think nanas and grannies are like that, aren't they?
Yeah, yeah. And it is,
Yeah,
it's a lovely, it was, and even now, do you know what I mean? She still does it now. She'll do things for me, or, when I go and see her and things like that. And it's a very, very close relationship I've got with my nan. She is like another mum to me, really. And my mum has said loads of times, you've got your nan, and that's how it is. It's a very close relationship.
did your mum work when she was bringing you up?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
what,
So my
what was
mum's
her what was her job?
she was a hairdresser.
Yeah,
She's always been a hairdresser. She's never
yeah.
been anything else. So she knew she had her career, hairdressing. So I did sometimes think when I was younger, I'll probably be a hairdresser. I remember in school, they say, what are you going to be? And I was like, I'll be a hairdresser like my mum. But I've never had any interest in it. I can't stand doing hair. It's just one of them things. I'm like, you've just got to do it to look good. Um, so I've never had any interest in that. So now I'm a coach. Um, Now I'm a life coach and a personal coach. I specialise in business, health and well-being, and just, when people come to that point where they don't really know where they're going in their life or very overwhelmed, things happen and people get stuck. So that's obviously then it's like coaching. Okay, let's get you out of this situation. Where do you want to go? What you're going to do. So what we're going to do to move forward from this to get you out of this situation, and it's again then looking at what are you good at, what are your qualities, and what can we improve on, what can we do to move that forward. So now I hold masterminds on, through Zoom, and they're free masterminds just to give people that little bit of help that I can give them, because I know obviously at the moment things are tough for some people and some people need the help, but they're not too sure where to go. So I hold masterminds, I coach online, clients online, and I'm just starting now to get myself into the public speaking side of things
Yeah.
as well. So it's all still very new. I've just finished a course on um, breath work and manifestation. So that's something that I'm going to be implementing soon and holding courses on that. So to teach breath work and how people can use breath work to overcome their anxieties.
Do you feel like you're pulling on your own past experiences that makes you believe you're a good coach?
Yeah, I do. And I think so before this, I had my career in childcare, and within that time I went through my separation with the children's dad. Like we had separated earlier on, and then
Mm-hmm.
we started the relationship again, and then I separated, and I got into fitness. I'd lost a lot of weight. Started my own fitness journey, and I then thought, again, it's like using my own experiences to help others. And this is what I know makes me a good coach, because I've got everything I do. I have the experience, personal
Mm.
experience, as well as the professional experience in. It's the two that go with it. I started my own fitness journey, lost a lot of weight, and when we separated, again, you kind of go into this downward spiral of when the children are at the dad's house, it was like, okay, I'm going to go out, I'm going to enjoy myself, and all this. And I did that for a little bit, and then I chose the gym. And I would be in the gym every weekend. From the minute the kids left, I'd literally walk out the door with them, get in my car, they'd get in the car with the dad and go to the dad's, and I'd go to the gym. And I would be there all weekend. I had a very healthy lifestyle at that time, and I was very focused. Everything in my life was going good. Everything in my home was going well because I had that lifestyle. And I then decided that I would do my PT qualification.
Okay.
So I think I was 30 when I did that. So this is long time after I've left school, a long time after I've tried different things, but everything I've done has to get me to where I am now
Mm.
has been a reflection of what I've been through. And I had my PT qualification, and I got a job with at a gym around here, and I went self-employed. I did fitness classes to pay the rent at the gym, and then lockdown hit, and I
Yeah.
was like, oh my gosh, like what now? I'd only been self-employed for like 4 months. Um, and lockdown hit, and I took my business online again in the lockdown. I didn't ever for one second think I'm going to end my career. This is it.
Mm.
I've only been self-employed for 4 months. I'm not entitled to no government grants. I'm not entitled to this. I'm not going to get that. It was like, right, okay, let's do it online. Let's go online. So I contacted my clients, said this is what I'm going to be doing. Got online Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 3 times a week. I did live classes on Instagram. 3 times a
Yeah.
day, sorry, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So I'd do one in the morning, lunchtime, and evening. 3 times a day for three days a week. I would do live classes, and the numbers started going up of who was coming on my classes. My followers started to grow, and all of a sudden I was like, I can actually work online, right? I can do
Yeah.
this online. You know, I'm reaching more people. I'm getting myself out there more than just in a small gym. I
Mm.
could do this. So after lockdown, I did go back into the gym at first, and because obviously then there wasn't a need for the online classes every day, I went back into the gym, and it was going really, really well. And then we went into lockdown again, and it was like, right, what do I do now? At this point now, my son was going through um, a process for additional needs. Things were getting really hard at home. Um, And when I went back into the gym after the second lockdown, I would go into the gym and then I would get a phone call after school to say, you have to come and get him. You know,
Mm.
this has happened. You have to come and get him. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I can't have this career. Like, I want to have a career. And I found something that I absolutely love to do, but I'm needed at home all the time. What do I do? You know, where do I go with this now? And um, I'd have to say to my client, I'm going to have to rebook your session or I'll have to refund you. I've got to go. My son needs me. Then my son then went through self-harming. So it meant there was times where I couldn't leave him. I couldn't leave the
Mm.
house, you know. So I had to make that decision then to stop personal training in the gym. It was the hardest decision I've ever made in a career because it was my very first business of my own that I'd created myself. I'd done it being a single parent. I'd survived the lockdown, you know, and I had such a love for training.
Mm.
It wasn't about the looking good. It was about what it was, the lifestyle it had given me, the confidence it had given me, and how it helped me. And to give that up was so hard, and it wasn't a decision that I made lightly at all. And at that point, because of everything that was happening, it then impacted my daughter, Jessica. She was very, very badly impacted with what was going on at home with her brother. And I thought and then I thought, I don't know where to go. For the first time in my life, I didn't have an answer for anything,
Mm.
and I was like, what now? What do I do now? And then I was told, then they said, I went to a meeting for my son. They said, would you become your son's full-time carer? And I said, what does that mean? And I didn't know what it meant. And they said, you'll become his carer. You won't have to go out to work, meaning you'll care for him for at least 35 hours a week at home. And he never attended school either. And I was just like, everything I've worked for, you know, is going, is gone.
Mm.
All this from a young age. You've got to go to work. You've got to do this. If you want a nice house, if you want a nice car, all this, you've got to go to work. I was like, I'm not going to have anything, and it was a really hard time in my life. And it was only a few years ago. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't even that long ago. And it was like, okay, so if I do that and then I can't go to work, how am I gonna survive? What am I gonna do? And at this time, I had met somebody, Ian, who is my partner now. We've got Gracie together now. And I was so understanding to him, what am I going to do? You know, like you met me when I was a personal trainer. You met me when I had this big career, and and I was doing so well, and I was this highly driven person. And now I don't know who I am. I didn't know. I said I can't guarantee that I can go to work. I can't guarantee that I'll be able to provide for anybody. And he had moved in, and he was, I remember having it was caused so many arguments. It's like, to him, he was
Mm.
like, I'm providing, I'm going to work and providing for you and the kids, and you're at home, but I wasn't at home doing nothing. I was at home supervising a child, really. That's what it was more like, making sure, going to appointments for him, going to meetings for him, fighting for him at school, to try and get that education. He was so let down by the education system, to the point where he isn't even doing GCSEs, because they can't meet his needs anymore. And then it's all like the schools have bounced back to each other, back and two, and we're still in that fight now to get him support, and he's in his last year in school now. But when then all of a sudden it was my partner who said to me about working online. He said, "You can work online. You've done it before." He said, "What about if we get a business mentor, right? An online
Mm.
business?" And I was just like, "Oh man, no, what is it? What have I got to do?" And he was like, "There's a business mentor that I found, and you can work online and you can build your own website with your own store, and all you do is sell products." And I was like, "Oh no, this to me," I was like, "No way, this sounds too hard. Like, I'm not doing this at all."
Yeah.
But then in the end, I said, "Okay, I'll do it, because this means then I don't have to be a carer, but I can work from home and still care for my son." And then we decided, because my son, it wasn't my partner, was, he keeps, he's 41 now, so he's like, "I'm getting old, I'm getting older." He's like, I want to, we want to have a baby, and he's like, "It's got to be soon because I'm getting older." So I was like,
Yeah.
right, okay. So I was pregnant with Gracie, and the pregnancy wasn't good. I was in and out of hospital a lot of times, and we'd bought this online mentor, and I was like, well, we actually haven't done anything, because I'm in and out of hospital all the time. This is
Mm.
what was going on. And then after I had Gracie, we've still got the business mentors, and they've taught me so much of what I'm now, to get me to where I am now. And my partner, I've built a website for his store. He sells specialty coffee, and we do that together. I say him, it's not, it's us, we sell it together. But then for me, I didn't feel like that was mine, or I was fulfilled with that.
Mm.
And then after I had Gracie, I said to Emma, that's when I said to Ian, I actually spoke to somebody on LinkedIn, and I spoke to him, and he said, "Do you want to have a Zoom? And you could tell me," because I put a post out there saying on LinkedIn, it says, "Have you ever felt really stuck in your life? Da, 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 and all this, like, where do I go? I feel like there's something missing in my life. I don't feel like I'm doing what I should be doing," type thing. And he contacted me, and he's like, "Do you want to have a Zoom?" And I was like, "Yeah." So at the time, I was actually out on a walk with Gracie, because she wouldn't settle. So I actually had the Zoom on my phone in the park while Gracie was going to sleep, and there was kids everywhere running around. He actually said to me, "Where are you?" And I was like, "I'm in a park. Like, this is my life, right? Like, I just get on wherever I can. I've got to get a baby to sleep here right now, right?"
Yeah.
And I was talking to him about what it is, about my past, about what I've been, what I've done, and all this. And then I was like, "I want to be a coach. I want to go back to coaching." And he was like, "Absolutely, you should." And he's like, I've only spoke to you once. He said, "But you've been talking for this whole hour, telling me everything."
Mm.
He said, "And I feel inspired by you, and absolutely you should." So when I come home, my partner was back at home, and I said to him, "I'm going back to coaching." And his first thing was, what about everything else we've got?" And I was like, "No, I can do the two. I can do the two. That's set up now. That your website's there. I'm not building anything." I can use the tools I've got to make like the personal training, but into life coaching, and I can make it bigger and better than it was before. I built that other business, the personal training business, on a whim, right? I've got no business experience. Now I've got all this experience to put forward into it. And that's how then I got back into coaching, and then in the UK, it's so strange. In the UK, you do not have to be qualified to be a life coach, right? Anyone can be a life coach. You could just give yourself that title and say, I'm a life coach. You don't need the qualification. Me being me, thought that's not good enough. I want to have that qualification. I want to be accredited, and I want to give some trust, really, to my clients that, yeah, I've got this personal experience, but I've also got professional experience as well. I've got that qualification. So that's what I did. I found a course that day, enrolled on it, and the course, it was a 12-month course, and I passed it in 6 weeks. I just got to it, straight to it. And my partner was like, I can't believe you've qualified. And I was like, because I know what I'm doing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's nothing new. If you give me maths, if you said to me, you've got to do a maths test, I would have needed longer than 12 months. But because it was something that I know and something that I'm good at and something that I've done in the past in a different way, I knew what I was doing. And that's got me to where I am now. And that's why now, my life coaching business it's only going to go one way, and it's only going to go up, and I'm so fortunate now that, like my little girl, my baby, she's asleep here now as I'm doing this, and I can do that. I don't have to put her in childcare. I don't have to rely on family, because it's not always supportive as you would hope it would be. And I think being a mum to children with SEN needs and to a new baby, there is people out there that would go, well, I can't do anything. I can't go out to work. I can't go and do a 9 to 5. But you don't have to do the 9 to 5. You can do the hours that suit you, and that's working online. Like I work on the phone. We had a week away. Last week we went away as a family. And while I was away, I was lying around the pool, while Gracie had a sleep, or while Ian was with Gracie or something. And I was posting on social media, so I can still do that because I can work anywhere, because my life, I can still be a mum. I can still be a carer for my son without being an actual carer, and also because he's not going to get any GCSEs, he might struggle, when it comes to going into the real world. Like I'm not going to say to him, like he's coming up to 16, he's 16 in November, next week, in 3 weeks time, he's 16. And he got his national insurance number, and he's like, Mum, I've got my national insurance number. And I was like, are you going to get a job? And he's like, no, right? Because he hasn't got that. He's not there in his life yet. He's got autism, he's got ADHD, and he's not there in his life yet. He's not, he wants to go and get a job, but saying you want to go and get a job and actually going to get a job when you have got additional needs is two completely different things. And at that young age, he's still very heavily relies on me, so I think he would probably think my mum would come to work with me, and like, it's okay because I'll just ring my mum up, if the boss said do overtime, he'd be like, no, he'd go, hang on, no, I can't be mum's said, that's kind of like what he would do. So to be able to now, because I work online, I've got the positive mindset of, Josh, you can achieve whatever you want to achieve, right? We have to work on it, but this can be yours. You can do whatever you want. And also within that, I've got a team of mentors who have helped me over the last few years to show me how to work online. And I'm hoping that he can do that. He's very, very technical, very much into his computers. He's a big gamer. And That's what he wants to do. He's like, I could work online, couldn't I? Like you, mum. Yeah, you could. There's no pressure. I don't put any pressure on him, because I think for me, look how long it took me to get to my career.
Do you see yourself being like your parent, or your mum, should I say, was with you? Do you see yourself being like that with your own kids? Or have you
Yeah.
developed over the years your own like outlook on life and views and what your kids are going to need?
Yeah, I think I've developed my own, and I think that's because with my kids I've had to, because I've obviously, for me, I haven't got the additional needs there, whereas
Yeah.
my other two children, they do, and they can't. It's not that they can't do. I hate saying that word, can't. At the moment, they're not ready to go into the real world at the capacity that somebody else who's 16 and getting their national insurance can go and get a Saturday job.
Mm-hmm.
It's completely different. He did, bless him, he did go to the local post office to ask if there was any jobs going, and they said no. Now, that's the difference. You see, like, he can go and ask, but when it comes to it, would he be able to go in and do it?
Yeah.
That's the big thing. It's like he wants to go to school, but when it comes to going to school, he just can't cope in there. So that is the difference. It's not that he doesn't want to do it. It's not that he's not got the ambition. It's that he struggles to do that at the moment. And that's something which I feel very fortunate with what I do, that I can help him help him
Yeah.
overcome that. And then obviously teach him. He likes computers. He likes working online. It's what he's already said. It's what he wants to do. Well, Josh, here's the tools. Let's do it. Let me help you. Let me help you build something for you,
Mm.
and I've said to school, because the school they put so much pressure on him to do his GCSEs, and I remember sitting in a meeting, I was like, he hasn't been to school properly, really, for over a year. How can he sit his GCSEs and not feel like a complete failure when he doesn't know the answers?
Mm.
That is going to do a child more harm than it is, especially a child who knows he's not going to pass them. And that's not me being nasty, that's me being real. He hasn't been to school for a long time. Even when he was in school, he didn't do anything. They've already said academically, he's about 3-4 years behind.
Yeah.
So why are you going to put a child who's that many years behind through an exam that children of his age would still struggle with? It doesn't make sense, So we had to fight for it, but they agreed that he doesn't have to do his GCSEs. He doesn't. Well, he said he's not going to sit them. And I've asked them to help him with a college course in computers. So with working online, I feel like there is other options.
Mm.
And getting that across to schools, because schools are very much like, you come to school, you do GCSEs, then you go and get a job and you work for someone 9 to 5, and that's your life. You do that every single day till you retire.
Yeah.
It's not, there's more out
Not
there.
the be all and end all,
It's
is it?
not,
Yeah.
no. So I think for me, yeah, I am very different to my mum.
I'm of a similar sort of era to yourself. My parents were, well, one of them anyway, had the similar sort of mindset. Get out there, get a job, which at the time, like you say, you don't think is the best way to go about it. But looking back at it, I can't help but credit certain traits that I have to that upbringing.
Mm,
And I often worry that I obviously don't want to be that person with my children, but I would love them to have my certain traits that I have. How do I install that into them without being my parent, sort of thing?
yeah,
Do you ever
yeah.
have that worry?
Yeah. So obviously, I want them to go and get jobs. I want them
Yeah,
to have the nice thing. They can't live with me for the rest of their lives, and they can't live off me. Do you know what I mean? And
yeah,
I don't, the big thing for me is I don't want my son to have that stigma of you've got additional needs, so you can't go to work.
Yeah.
Right. You know, and there is like, it's trying to explain to him that you do go to work, you do have to pay rent. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's another thing. No, he said to me, he said, when I get a job, he said, when I get a job, Mum, shall I just give you £50 a month? And I went, what's that for? Like, your socks? What is that? What is that for? Like, I thought he's got no thing of how much things cost, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, no. I was like, I'll decide how much you give me, because
Yeah.
I'm the parent here. And I want him to have all that. And I want him, I want him to be able to make the choices that he wants to make that I couldn't make. I didn't have time to make
Yeah.
choices. It was all very much, you have to do this, do this, do this, do this. And that scares me. Now I look back at that, I think, my gosh, my son's nearly 16. I thought that means like in 2 years' time, he would move out.
Kicking him out, yeah.
I'd kick him out.
Yeah.
That's it. Bye. You
Yeah.
go live by yourself. I couldn't imagine doing that, and that's not saying what my mum did was wrong, because what's to say if she didn't do that, I would have just carried on probably working in New Look on a Saturday and a Sunday. I probably would have found another course that I could do somewhere. I probably would have thought, you know what, I don't want to do nails anymore. I want to do beauty. Do you know what I mean? There would have been something somewhere that I would have done, and I wouldn't have got anywhere. So it made me really strong. It made me self-sufficient. It made me independent, and it made me a go-getter, really. I had no choice, but it's good that I had no choice.
So I'm going to move on now to the final question.
Okay.
And it is, if you could give one piece of advice to your previous boss, I mean, you could pick out of the many jobs you've had, which one you want to talk about. So if you could give one piece of advice to your previous boss, what would it be?
It actually, you know what? It actually just treat people like a human. Like, we're not robots. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they expect so much from people.
Yeah.
Without giving anything back, giving so little back. And I think, I'd probably also like to say, just stop being a dickhead, like, to people. Stop treating people. So instead of stop treating people like humans, start treating people like you. Stop treating people like shit. Do you know what I mean? Because people go to work because they have to, because they've got lives, they've got families, they've got homes that you have to pay for. Going to work to some people is a break out the house, out of what's going on at home, and they do it because they want to, they have to, and they choose that career. So when you are in a job that your manager doesn't see anything outside of their office going on, they can treat you like shit. Do you know what I mean? And that has a knock-on effect. And I think partly as well, my reason for getting out of that 9 to 5 role was because at the time, my manager I didn't like her. She wasn't a nice person. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it gave me so much satisfaction knowing that I was handing my notice into that job and I would never go and work for anyone again. And since then, I've been self-employed, and I've still been self-sufficient and independent. And if anything, I've grown into a true self over the last few years to get me to and that's led me to where I am now, which is coaching.
And a quick disclaimer, not all managers are dickheads.
No, not all.
There's some good ones out there.
If you find any, just let me know.
Yeah. But listen, Katherine, it's been brilliant talking to you, listening to your story, your career, and everything else that you've got going on. But I wish you the best of luck with your next move or continuing with what you're doing now.
Yeah.
And thank you again for joining me.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Not a problem.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Thank you for listening. I hope you've enjoyed. Don't forget to hit that follow button and join me next time for more chats on Nick Needs to Know.